This is the My Child Will Thrive podcast, and I'm your host, Tara Hunkin, nutritional therapy practitioner, certified GAPS practitioner, restorative wellness practitioner, and mother. I'm thrilled to share with you the latest information, tips, resources, and tools to help you on the path to recovery for your child with ADHD, autism, sensory processing disorder, or learning disabilities. My own experiences with my daughter, combined with as much training as I can get my hands on, research I can dig into, and conferences I can attend, have helped me to develop systems and tools for parents like you who feel overwhelmed trying to help their children. So sit back as I share another great topic to help you on your journey. Today's podcast is sponsored by the Autism, ADHD, and Sensory Processing Disorder Summit. In order to learn more about the summit and to sign up for free, please go to www.mychildwillthrive.com/summit. Hi, everyone. Today I have on the My Child Will Thrive podcast, Tonya Harris. Tonya is a board certified holistic nutrition and graduated from Hawthorne University with a Master of Science in Holistic Nutrition. She's also a graduate of Eastern Illinois University, where she received her Bachelor of Science in Elementary Education. As a childhood leukemia survivor and now the mother of three, one with multiple learning disabilities, including ADHD, Tonya's path has led her to a mission of helping parents learn how both diet and common toxins in the home can affect their child's health. Tonya, I couldn't be more excited about having you on the podcast today because we have so many common interests and also background with our kids. So welcome.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so excited and, any chance to work with you because we have so many things in common. Thanks for having me.
What I want to do is give people, because obviously we know each other. I want you to give everybody an idea of how you came about to be an environmental toxins expert and why you do the work that you're doing right now.
Sure. Well, I like to say my story started 36 years ago. Just before my 7th birthday, I was diagnosed with leukemia. So, did chemo, did all that stuff. And in high school and college, I was starting to be told, watch what you put in your body, like watch what you eat, this and that. So when I started having kids shortly later, I was still careful about what I ate, but I bought these products thinking, okay, it says made for baby, so it's safe for babies and it's gentle and it's mild. So I thought I was doing the best I could at the time. Fast forward again to, I think it was 2006, I got a phone call from my son's teacher at school saying he's showing some attention issues and we want to get him tested for ADHD. And I don't know if it's what I went through as a child or what it was, but something in me was I just said, can I have a little bit of time to think about this? I just want to go home and look at some things and then I'll come back and we'll talk about it. And I went home, researched the heck out of everything. And this was before I got any of my education. I was just Googling. And back in 2006, it was a little tougher. But I found the Feingold diet and a couple of other things. But one of the first things I took out were artificial colors and benzoate preservatives. And when I went back to the school a few weeks later to talk about testing, they said, we don't even want to test him anymore. So we didn't cure him, but we still see the symptoms crop up, but we lessened them enough that the school no longer saw the need to test him. So then I was hooked. I went back to school, got my master's in holistic nutrition, got another phone call from the school, which I hate phone calls from the school now, but it was another one this time about my daughter. And so this was several years later, just as I was finishing up my master's degree. And right away, I did know she needed to be tested because I'd seen the signs since really preschool, and having taught and have my degree in elementary education, I knew something was up. But hers came back with multiple learning disabilities and ADHD, and it's been such a struggle. So I decided to do my thesis on toxins and food for ADHD and really just dove right in thinking if it helped my son, it can help my daughter. And through all this, what I realized is it's not just what we eat, it's what we put on our bodies too, that our skin can just absorb so many things. So that was a surprise to me about how much they hide on the labels. And even if we're having air fresheners or candles burning in the house, how much that can all affect all of our body systems, including our brain health.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that exactly what you said about we buy the marketing of the products, and even now with, and we'll get into that a little bit more, even now with the greener products, and the marketing still can be that they're safe and that they are toxin free, but they aren't always. So it's incredibly, I agree with you, back in 2006, the Googling wasn't what the Googling does today. The Google is amazing.
Right.
You can do lots of research on your own, but it did take a lot more digging back then. And now that people are becoming more aware too, the marketing actually has taken off for the products that are supposedly safer. So, but yet we're still seeing things that aren't that safe. So that's where it becomes so confusing and overwhelming as a parent, as you know,
Yes.
to figure out what the right thing is to really do. And as you and I have talked, toxins are such a massive area to cover because of this. But you figured out a way like that you look at them in terms of breaking them down into what areas of our life we should be looking at to see if they're impacting our kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wanted to make it simple because I remember when I first started, well, first of all, sorry to my husband, but probably the hundreds, if not thousands of dollars I spent and wasted buying these products that I thought were natural.
Yeah.
So, just when I started my journey, how overwhelming it was. And I went through it too, where I was like, oh my gosh, I have to toss everything and start completely over. But it doesn't have to be that way. The more changes we make, the better, obviously, but even a few small changes can have a huge impact on our family's health, especially when we decide on our deal breakers, is what I like to call them. So what I think of is we have learning disabilities and ADHD in our family is probably my biggest concern. So those are the ones where if there's an ingredient such as MSG in the food, that I'm not going to buy a product with that. But I also follow like an 80-20 rule where it's like if 80% of the time I'm buying safer products, I don't have to worry about that other 20% of the time when we're out or if we're traveling and we need something and the store doesn't carry our safest, our safer brand, that we can do that too. So I like to look at it mainly instead of everywhere in the house trying to figure out where all the toxins are, which I can get to and I can help people get there. The things I like to start out with are the things we use most, and that is what we put in our bodies with our food, and then what we put on ourselves, so personal care products and cosmetics, and then cleaning products, because even when we're not using those, they can off-gas into the air, and indoor air pollution can be up hundreds of times or up to 100 times greater than outdoor pollution.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing we sometimes forget. And we think that that when you first start out, you think that the toxins are, the exhaust fumes and some of the really big ones that have been talked about for many, many years. And they are there and they will always be there, but we have to look at the ones that we can control ourselves because we can't control all of those things. We're always going to be exposed to some degree. What do you recommend? And you talk about those deal breakers. How do you recommend parents go about minimizing them without getting overwhelmed and paranoid about, what's in their home and what their children are touching or doing?
Yeah, definitely figuring out which ingredients lead to what. So definitely educating yourself on the label. And actually, before I get to that, I'll get to the number one thing I recommend doing is taking the one or two most consumed things or most used things and replacing those first. So for instance, getting the plastic away from your food is a big one. So instead of tossing all your stuff and be like, oh my God, I got to get rid of all these plastic things, just take your one or two most used plastic food storage containers or water bottles, toss those, recycle those, whatever, and get a safer brand. So like stainless steel or glass water bottles, glass food storage containers. My daughter loves hot dogs. I hate that. She does. So since to keep her happy, I just buy a safer brand of hot dog. So that's really what I think. So same thing with our makeup. Like I know I have a mascara that I love, but it's not necessarily non-toxic, I hate to say. But just to not overwhelm people, I do have a couple safer mascaras that I wear every day, or I don't wear them at all. And then I save what I have for a special occasion. Because I also think the first thing we tell people is you can't ever have it again is, people will kind of rebel against that, or kids. I know I would. So just basically taking a look at the top one or two or three if you can, and replacing those first and buying those as often as possible. Like a shampoo, for example, because we use that almost every day, or a toothpaste. Those are two really important things to replace first.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good strategy. I could think because well, we both have teenage daughters.
Hmm.
So, although my daughter, I have to admit, she's super compliant, but I also don't want to make her super paranoid.
Hmm.
And I think that that goes with food. It's one of the challenges that we go through on a regular basis. And also with the teenage girls in particular, as they grow up, and even little girls like to have nail polish or those things, and to tell them that they can't ever have it, I think is a lot to ask of them. So it's a great way to go about doing things, as getting those big, or as you could call them the low hanging fruit first, and address them to start with.
Right.
Um, I did want to dive into, when it comes to, you've touched on a little bit about this, but when it comes to foods, especially, what have you found in your experience, through your research and also through your client work and your children, are when it comes to the neurological symptoms, what are the biggest offenders that people should be looking out for, and what types of symptoms do we typically see when they're in the diet?
Okay, well, I think one of the biggest ingredients that doesn't get enough attention is monosodium glutamate, MSG, and it's in so many processed foods and it hides in other ingredients. So this one is really important to educate ourselves on, because sometimes you'll see, for instance, on a can of soup, you'll see MSG free or does not contain MSG. But then you'll see a little symbol by that thing and you turn it over and sure enough it says, except for that which is naturally found in this ingredient.
Mm.
So we've really got to educate ourselves. It hides in so many products. So one of the things is that's an excitotoxin, which means when that's consumed, it can get, the neurons in the brain can start overfiring, and they just excite themselves to the point of cell exhaustion or even cell death several hours later. And one of the big authors on the subject is Dr. Blaylock, and he's got an awesome book on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually have a quote here I'm just going to read because I wrote this down. I'm like, it's too good to just kind of summarize. But he believes that that MSG can damage children's brain health by affecting the development of the nervous system to the point that they may have learning and emotional difficulties later in life.
Yeah.
So they've done some studies too, and what they found was when they gave MSG to pregnant rats, or pregnant animals, they found that their offspring had learning difficulties similar to ADHD. Mm-hmm. And they also found the neurons in their frontal cortex were decreased. The numbers were decreased. And the frontal cortex is, of course, where memory and learning and mood and self-regulating behavior is.
Yeah.
I just really think that MSG needs to be talked about a little bit more, because I don't think that one's talked about enough.
Yeah.
And it's sneaky.
Well, I think that's one of the keys with it. So people, I think some people are aware of MSG being in things like, it's preservative used in some, takeout foods like Chinese food, or other things like that, but they don't realize it's in a lot more places. And like you said, it's also naturally occurring in some places. So understanding where to find them is really important, because you may think that you've eliminated them and you haven't.
Right. Yeah, so that's a huge one for me. But a couple other ones I'll mention are ones I've talked about before are food colorings, mm-hmm. and benzoate preservatives. And they're both linked to hyperactivity. So I know that was one of the things that actually lessened my son's attention issues. But they've done studies, and they even did a study on children combining the artificial flavors with the benzoate preservatives. And they found that it brought out hyperactivity in children that don't even have an ADHD diagnosis. Which I thought was interesting. So
yeah, well, and I think that just goes to show you that, as it does with your son, is there really a diagnosis there to be had, or is it really a symptom, a reaction to a food or a toxin that's in their environment? So it's a gray area, and I think that's why we. I know you do, and I do. It's about the symptoms in the end. The diagnosis is helpful in terms of some supports in school, and also trying to figure out what to do next. But in the end, if we look at the symptoms, we can start to find the triggers for those symptoms and start to peel them away one by one. One of the things you just were talking about is that the benzoate preservatives. Where do you find those typically?
Those are found in a lot of foods too, and beverages. They're in like canned pickles and a lot of soda or pop. And just a whole bunch of, I'd say mainly juices though, but juices and soda, but yeah, other things too, because it's a preservative. So in canned and pickled items too.
Wow. So that it's going to show up in lots of places.
Mm-hmm.
So what about the personal health products? So we've talked about some of them, but what types of, I know when there are a lot of people that go out there and they go to the extreme, like you said, of throwing everything out, and then they try to make a whole bunch of home care products. I've given up on that myself personally. There are very few that we actually create on our own anymore.
Right, me too.
I'm always looking for one that I can actually safely purchase. So what types of things are the big offenders typically in personal healthcare products, like shampoo, for example, one that we are using on our kids all the time that we should be avoiding?
I think one of the biggest ones is sulfates, like sodium lauryl sulfate. And the reason for that is because sodium lauryl sulfate, which is another one I'll talk about, is so harsh that it can actually like do bad things to your skin and hair. And it's in a lot of toothpaste too, so that's another one to avoid. But when they convert sodium lauryl sulfate into sodium laureth sulfate, which is a chemical relative, they use ethylene oxide. So it's what I call a hidden toxin, because then it can be contaminated with 1,4-dioxane, which is a probable cancer causer and is linked to organ system toxicity. So that's a big one. Parabens, some shampoos and some things have several parabens, and those can act as endocrine disruptors. And the short version of an endocrine disruptor is the endocrine system is where our hormones are made. So there's hormones for everything like sleep, hunger, thyroid, blood sugar, everything. So an endocrine disruptor is a synthetic chemical that comes in and can block the hormones or mimic the hormones and can basically kind of prevent them from doing their job. So that's where you can see all sorts of things crop up, including neurodevelopmental system or issues. And so parabens are another thing. And fragrance, believe it or not, because fragrance can contain so many different chemicals and it's considered to be a trade secret. So we don't know what's in there. And the Chemical Society stated that there's like 3,000 different chemicals that can make up fragrance. So it could be cancer causers, endocrine disruptors, things that are toxic to the brain and nervous system. We just don't know. So fragrance is another one that I really recommend avoiding.
Yeah. Well, so, and I think that goes to one of the things that we're now learning is that a lot of these chemicals that are being used in many different things, not just in the personal healthcare products or other things, they aren't being tested. There's very few that the FDA and other agencies actually test fully before they allow them to be used commercially. And in particular, they don't test them in combination with each other. So we have no idea the synergistic impact of them as well. So that was a big eye opener to me when I first started looking at the impact of toxins. We just assume the government is testing these.
Yeah, and it's kind of scary who's in charge of cosmetic safety, because it's really the cosmetics industry itself, and the FDA does not require testing of these chemicals. And then the companies are claiming too that they have, minute amounts under the millions or billions of parts or whatever. But, they're finding that some of these things, including parabens, are actually more dangerous at lower concentrations. And then not only that, we're getting so many multiple exposures per day because we might be using several different products that have parabens or anything in there. So definitely worth avoiding these things.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing is that, when you start thinking about that as nutritionists, when we look into some of the nutritional therapy, I mean, we're now, a lot of the different supplements that come in a topical cream, which is because it's really effective to have things soak in through the skin. And we just forget about the fact that it is an absorption site, and we really do get a lot through our skin, and that means we get a lot of bad stuff along with whatever good stuff we're trying to introduce in at the same time.
Exactly. And I think the same thing with mouth, because a lot of the supplements are also sublingual, which is under the tongue.
Yeah.
Or if you're having a heart attack, what's that medicine they have you take?
The nitroglycerin. Yeah.
Right under the tongue. So when you're using a toothpaste that has these toxins, the mouth is very, very porous with those mucous membranes, so it soaks right into the body really quickly. So
yeah. No, it is pretty scary that way. So we've covered off some of it, the foods and some of the personal care products. What about cleaning products that we're using every day in the house?
Okay, and this one's a little trickier because actually cleaning companies aren't made to list or to disclose all of their ingredients on a label. So a lot of times we're not going to know what we're looking for or what we're looking at, but they can contain some pretty scary ingredients too, like glycol ethers, fragrance again, let's see, quaternary ammonium compounds, which can actually be formaldehyde releasers, which are another hidden toxin. And what those are really quick too, because I think this is the best guide. The one I think people should look at first is those are ones that act as preservatives and they're put in products, but as they break down over time to preserve that product, they're releasing formaldehyde, which formaldehyde is a known cancer causer and toxic to just toxic. So yeah, we just don't want that in our products either. Synthetic musts and diethylene glycol and isobutane on some of these spray things that, is direct neurotoxin. So those are just some of the things.
Well, so that being in mind, so one of the things I know I do at home is I do make a lot of cleaning products at home because that's actually more simpler than I think some of the personal care products.
Absolutely.
One of the things I will tackle. What do you typically recommend? Are there a few cleaning products that you think people can create really easily just to outright replace and have to worry about those labels anymore?
Yes, and I love it too because it's so not true that we need all of these different cleaning products for all these different services. Because when I first started, I think I went down from like 20 cleaning products to 3. Yeah. So it's like the house just feels better if you're not putting those toxic chemicals in. The headaches go away, the respiratory issues aren't as bad. So I like to make my own multi-purpose cleaner with just distilled water, and I always recommend distilled so it doesn't leave like minerals behind if you're using it on glass. So you can just use distilled water and vinegar as a window thing. I actually use it not on my marble or granite because that can etch, but I use it on my bathroom countertops too. And sometimes you can even add essential oil to it, like a lemon, for a little bit more disinfecting, but also to make it smell better. My favorite toilet bowl cleaner is actually my carpet stain remover. So I just keep a box of baking soda underneath every bathroom sink, and I do like the Costco size gallon of vinegar, and I just sprinkle baking soda into the toilet bowl, and then I just eyeball it, and just because I like to watch it foam, to pour vinegar on top, a little bit of essential oil too in there, and you can leave it sit overnight or a few hours, or you can even scrub right away, and that's an awesome toilet bowl cleaner. And do the same thing for a carpet on a stain. Stain on a carpet was with me today. It's been that kind of morning. Sprinkle a little bit of baking soda on a stain, and then just a little bit, don't pour it in like you do the toilet bowl, of vinegar on top of that stain, and just blot it. I let it sit actually for a couple seconds, and you can see the stain lifting.
Wow, that's amazing.
Carpet. And it's so fun to watch.
It's funny as a mom, the things we get excited about.
Yep.
The other, actually, it's funny because I was talking to Jody Cohen Sternoff about essential oils, and she also brought up the lemon essential oil and how great it is for things like it takes Sharpie off of things. So if your kid's a color in all the wrong places, it's a really natural way just to remove some Sharpie marks. Well, that's great. And one of the things I love about the work that you do, you have an entire free resource library where, because you've been talking about all these different toxins, chemical names, impacts, and everything else, hard to catch, especially on a podcast. But tell people where they can go to download your free resource library, where you actually have guides on cleaning products and all of these things, all the things we've been talking about today, so that they can just download them and refer to them when they're at the grocery store.
Sure. The guide is on my website. My website is slightlygreener.com. And it's being redesigned right now, but the pages should all stay the same. It's the resources tab. So if you go there, you just enter your name and email, and then you get sent the link right away of just all of the guides. And I think I have over 40, which can be a little overwhelming, but I recommend starting with the ones I just put at the top to make it really easy to know what to start with. And those are the ingredients to avoid. So again, I broke it down into food, personal care products, and then cleaning products. And I just recommend downloading those to your phone, so when you're shopping, you have easy label checking. And then I also have my Safer Brands to Buy guide, which is another good place to start. So it's just got a bunch of links to different brands that I've vetted that have safer products, and I'm adding more all the time because there's just so many good ones. The good news about all this stuff is really the companies are paying attention, and there's so many good options now, which is so exciting. So I recommend starting there. But yeah, definitely on my site at look on the resources tab.
Yeah, no, it's a really great resource. So I highly recommend everybody goes and checks that out because it will simplify your life quite a bit. And you don't have to do all the hard work that Tonya's already done to research all of these things. And I agree with you. The great thing is that the tide is turning. And as long as you look at the labels and not the marketing, there are a lot of products that are out there that are so much better than they were before, making life a little bit easier. For everyone. And the other thing I love about your stuff, Tonya, is that you're not telling everybody the most expensive brands because that's the easy way out. You show them to where they can find the less expensive ones. And actually, it just brought to mind where in terms of your Facebook page. Where can they find you too? Because Tonya does lots of great Facebook Lives, which you should catch. Every once in a while, you might catch someone in a T-Rex costume, which is very entertaining beyond everything else.
Yeah, I think it's such a heavy topic. I like to put a little bit of humor into it because some people are like, I just don't want the information. I'm like, you will if it's a T-Rex making the product or talking about it.
Yeah.
So I share 3 T-Rex costumes behind me because I have 3 kids, so you'll see them usually.
Yeah. If you haven't seen a T-Rex making home care products before, check it out.
Yeah, and that page is just facebook.com, and then it's /Tonya Harris MSHN. So you can find it there. And I try to do daily Facebook Live videos right now.
Yeah. And we'll put all that on the show notes for anybody that's listening to this while they're driving, because we wouldn't want you to miss out on that. So can you just tell everybody before we wrap up where can they find you in terms of obviously your website, but what types of work are you doing with clients right now? And what are the things that you're working on right now to help parents?
Yeah, that's a big question. I'm actually kind of redoing my business right now, and I'm not necessarily working with clients, but what I'm doing is doing those Facebook videos, and I have a free Facebook group where I'm jumping in and answering questions and doing that way. And I do have an online program I will be re-releasing soon. But basically right now, I'm just working on that. And I have a book I'm co-authoring coming out next month. I'm working on one of my own that will be coming out because the one next month is co-authored. But yeah, right now my business is just kind of going in a, I don't know, direction. I'll be basically re-releasing the program, but right now I'm just working with the people in my Facebook group and doing all this info to get it out there.
That's great. Well, which is wonderful because all this is accessible right now for free for people, which is incredibly helpful. As you know, going through all this stuff, as you said, you spend hundreds and thousands and sometimes tens of thousands of dollars investing in helping your kids. So it's wonderful that there's so much available for free. Tell us a little bit about the book that you have coming out this coming month.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, thank you. It's coming out March 27th. It'll be on Amazon. It's called Women Who Inspire, and I'm one of the co-authors of that, and I'm super excited. So it's basically 30 amazing women who have this message to share, and I don't even really talk about toxins that much in this one. It's my first kind of dipping my toe into the book writing thing, but it's an amazing book with amazing women. So I basically just talk about actually my cancer when I was little. Went through a little bit of that, had to interview my parents, which was, tough, but we did it and it was awesome. And then went on with the struggles with my daughter and how I started doing this, but in more detail than what I went through today.
Great. Well, I encourage everybody to pick that up. It may not be available right away when this podcast goes live, but it will be there shortly thereafter. And it's called Women Who Inspire?
Women Who Influence?
Women Who Influence. Okay, great. That's great. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to walk us through all this stuff. And like I said, I hope that everybody gets a chance to go to your free resource library and download all the free guides you have there because they are incredibly helpful. I hope you've enjoyed today's interview with Tonya. I will be interviewing her as one of the experts on the Autism, ADHD, and Sensory Processing Disorder Summit. Tonya will dive even deeper into how toxins impact our children. If you want to sign up for free, you can do that at www.mychildwillthrive.com/summit. I hope to see you there. My Child Will Thrive is not a substitute for working with a qualified healthcare practitioner. The information provided on this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat your child. Please consult your healthcare practitioner before implementing any information or treatments that you have learned about on this podcast. There are many gifted, passionate, and knowledgeable practitioners with hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of study and clinical experience available to help guide you. Part of our goal is to give you the knowledge and tools you'll need to effectively advocate for your child so that you don't blindly implement each new treatment that comes along. No one knows your child better than you. No one knows your child's history like you do or can better judge what is normal or abnormal for your child. The greatest success in recovery comes from the parent being informed and asking the right questions and making the best decisions for their child in coordination with a team of qualified practitioners in different areas of specialty. That's a wrap. Thanks for joining me this week on the My Child Will Thrive podcast. I want to share with you the free tools I've created to help you on your journey. So head to mychildwillthrive.com/library to get free access now. And as they say, it takes a village. Join us in the My Child Will Thrive Village Facebook group, where you can meet like-minded parents and stay up to date on everything we have going on at My Child Will Thrive. This is Tara Hunkin, and I'll catch you on the next podcast or over at mychildwillthrive.com.